only getting that much closer to The Force Awakens, so I think now is a good time to talk about the next movie in the Star Wars series, and that is Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, as I mentioned in my Phantom Menace spoiler, I am just not a fan of the Star Wars prequel trilogy at all. I pointed out that the Phantom Menace is an extremely flawed movie that really doesn't harken back to anything that we love about the original trilogy. But I did go out of my way to say that there is some entertainment to be found in the Phantom Menace, what at least has that going for it. Attack of the Clones, on the other hand, though, oh boy. Now obviously there are some conflicting opinions about where does each Star Wars movie rank among each other. However, one thing that all true Star Wars fans can agree with is that Attack of the Clones is the worst movie in the entire Star Wars saga. So let's talk about why this movie is such a fucking piece of shit. Shall we? So the movie takes place around 10 years after the Phantom Menace. We see Padme, she's now a senator, and someone out there is clearly trying to assassinate her. So with that, the Jedi Council decides to place her under the protection of Obi-Wan and Anakin. And already, right around here, something just seemed off with this movie. I say that because, one, the last time we saw Anakin, he was a 9-year-old kid. And yes, granted, it is 10 years later, but it does not change the fact that last time we saw Anakin and Padme together, Padme was clearly much older than Anakin. I don't know, but me personally, it felt like George Lucas was really just trying to make Anakin Padme's age, so that way when they fall in love, it'll be less creepy. So later on one night, when Padme is sleeping, this bounty hunter sends this pod to kill her by releasing these poisonous centipedes into her room. Hey, here's another genius idea, bounty hunter. Why don't you instead use that pod to launch a grenade or shoot a gun into her room and just kill her that easily? It's done. It would just be that simple. Your work would be done. See? It's just stupid. So Obi-Wan and Anakin are able to kill the centipedes before they can kill her, but then Obi-Wan decides to do the most dummy head thing that he could possibly do in this situation. He jumps out of this window that is literally like 1,000,000 stories tall already, and then he just grabs onto the pod that just starts floating around everywhere in the sky. I mean, it's like he didn't even stop to think to himself, you know, there's a good chance I could either miss grabbing onto this pod, or even if I do grab onto it, chances are I'm eventually going to slip and just fall to my death. Maybe I should look for a safer approach here. Lucky for him though, Anakin chases him down through a speeder to save his ass. Only for Anakin to then jump out of the speeder itself 1,000,000 stories tall to catch the bounty hunter's ship. Obi-Wan clearly judges him for it, but I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe if you didn't do it, your apprentice who's supposed to follow you in example wouldn't do it either. They eventually do catch the bounty hunter, but before she can tell them who she works for, her employer Jango Fett shoots her with a poison dart that kills her. Why Jango Fett didn't just fire off 2 more poison darts to kill Anakin and Obi-Wan, I will never know. See, we're already 20 minutes into this movie and I've already listed so much that's wrong with it. But not as bad as it gets. So the Jedi Council ultimately decides that the best form of action is for Obi-Wan to go and track down Jango Fett while Padme and Anakin go to Naboo for better security. Now let me touch for a moment on Anakin in this movie. This is the guy who's going to grow up and become Darth Vader, one of the most evil and ruthless villains in movie history. And in this movie, there is absolutely nothing in him that really screams to me Darth Vader, or really anything that harkens back to what the original trilogy described him to be. For example, he and Obi-Wan in this movie, they're constantly bickering with each other, they always seem annoyed with one another, and there just really doesn't seem to be a sign that they really want to work together at all. In the original trilogy, Obi-Wan described Anakin as a powerful Jedi and a good friend. And nowhere in this movie do we really see much of an indication of either of that whatsoever. I think that's a problem. And also, the huge issue that I have with Anakin in this movie is how much of a bitch he is. I mean, he's constantly whining like a pussy when things don't go his way, and he also has absolutely zero respect for Obi-Wan's teachings. It's like, dude, he is your master. He is clearly a much more experienced Jedi than you are. You need to listen to him and respect him. And he barely does that at all in this movie. Now we get to Naboo, and this is where Padme and Anakin are supposed to fall in love here. Because apparently that is supposed to be the main plot line of this movie. So how is the romance in this movie? It's non-existent, completely unbelievable bullshit. That's what it is. For starters, Anakin comes off as an absolute creep to Padme. Like, you ever see a guy at a bar, a party, or whatever, and he's clearly trying to pick up a girl, but all he's really doing is just staring at her awkwardly for like 7 hours? That's Anakin in this movie. Yet for some reason, Padme doesn't punch him across his face for any of it. Definitely looked like she wanted to, though, on more than one occasion. And then on Naboo, when the two of them are, actually supposed to be falling for one another, we literally just get beaten over the head with some of the worst dialogue ever. There is one instance where Anakin actually says, "The thought of us not being together just tortures me inside." Oh my gosh, dude. That is nothing that anyone would say to anybody. I can say that because I know that if I ever heard those words to my girlfriend, she would laugh in my face. And then I would laugh at myself for saying that. And then what Padme does, which I honestly think is kind of bitchy of her, is, she obviously tells him, it's forbidden. We could never be together. And yet the entire time they're on Naboo, she is always wearing these incredibly revealing outfits right in front of him. Ladies, let me give you a piece of advice right now. If there's a guy who clearly likes you, but you do not like him that way, don't wear some super hot outfit that you may have directly in front of him. At that point, you are being a teasing bitch and he will never leave you alone. Guarantee you. Alright, now let's get the hell off Naboo and get back to Obi-Wan. He eventually tracks down Jango Fett on the planet Kamino, where a clone army is being built by the Republic. Obi-Wan tries to bring him down. We get a brief conflict between the two of them. Obi-Wan fails to capture him, so he tracks his ship down to the planet Geonosis, where Obi-Wan gets captured by the new Sith Lord Count Dooku, aka Darth Tyrannus. And Dooku here reveals that he's been working alongside the Trade Federation from the Phantom Menace. However, Obi-Wan is able to relay the information to Anakin, who just had the worst day of his life after he was unable to rescue his mother from the Sand People of Tatooine. And at first, I obviously actually started to feel sympathy for him a little bit. I mean, to lose your parent, that's the worst thing that could happen to anybody. But once again, as he's mourning, he goes back to bitching about Obi-Wan. Literally just goes on a rant on how he's jealous, and he's holding me back. It's like, you just had a golden opportunity to finally win us over there, bro, and you completely blew it. So he and Padme go to rescue Obi-Wan through a really sloppy, out-of-place action scene in the droid factory on Geonosis, because that is exactly what it is. This leads to all three of them being captured and brought to this arena to be publicly executed. And here is where we get one of the worst lines ever written for a movie. Padme looks at Anakin and she says, "I love you." And Anakin's like, "I thought we agreed that was forbidden." And then Padme says the words, "I truly, deeply love you." Every time I hear that line, I'm just always like, done, just forget it, I'm done. Again, nobody ever says that in real life. It's like George Lucas knows that we don't buy it, so we literally just have to shove it in your face like, they love each other. That line is pathetic, it's embarrassing, and it just honestly drags the movie down that much more. However, next we get what is the best part of the movie. An army of Jedi led by Mace Windu shows up, they free the three of them from being executed, and then they all just start wiping out all of the droids in the arena and just kicking complete and total ass. We even get to see Mace Windu decapitate Jango Fett. And I thought this scene was actually pretty cool because this is the first time in the Star Wars saga where we truly get to see just how powerful the Jedi are. It actually made for a pretty sweet action scene. So after that, Anakin and Obi-Wan leave to go confront Count Dooku, where I thought we'd get a really cool fight between the three of them. But it's not really. I mean, Anakin, being the idiot that he is, just rushes into the fight, which leads to Count Dooku just cutting off one of his arms and Obi-Wan getting knocked unconscious by Count Dooku. However, after that, Yoda shows up to face Count Dooku himself, which is great because now we get to finally see Yoda in action for the first time. They first start testing each other through their knowledge of the Force, and Yoda clearly shows just how wise and powerful he is. But then, however, we get to the lightsaber duel between the two of them. Now, some fans just hate the idea of Yoda having a lightsaber. They just feel he just doesn't need one. I certainly hear where they're coming from, but me personally, I don't mind it. Now, the fight between them is pretty cool. It's great seeing how awesome of a fighter Yoda is, despite the fact that he's so small and so old. It gets to the point where Count Dooku feels he just can't win, so he decides to use the Force to try to crush a pillar onto Obi-Wan and Anakin that forces Yoda to save them so Count Dooku can escape. And then the final scene of this movie shows Anakin with a new robot hand as he and Padme get married in secret as the movie thankfully ends. So all in all, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones is a terrible movie. The acting sucks. Again, it doesn't pay any legitimate homage to the original trilogy. The writing is absolutely abysmal. The characters are not intriguing whatsoever. The plot is nonsense. The love story in this movie is one of the most unbelievable love stories ever placed in movies. The visual effects in this movie don't look like anything super impressive, and I honestly just think this movie is so disappointing. However, I won't say this movie is a complete fail because, like I mentioned, there are a couple scenes in it that I actually do like, but that's about it. Point being, it's hands down the worst movie in the Star Wars saga, and it's just a movie that we'd all rather forget about. Except we never will, because it's a Star Wars movie. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.